Hi, I'm Finn Ralph. This video will summarize the development of my honors project, Effective Sound Design for Horror Games. The project aimed to explore sound design and implementation for horror video games. The project outcomes consisted of a game created in Unreal Engine with Fmod and a player survey. Research conducted for the literature review provided me with a foundation for understanding horror sound analysis, identifying common tropes in media, and I applied these to my game. One of the tropes was the fear of the unknown and the audio uncanny valley, which can be achieved by distorting sounds which are innately familiar to us, like the human voice. This is seen in the game Iron Lung, which I used as a case study in the literature review. A sound effect heard in the game, and one which is especially effective in evoking fear, sounds almost human. I took inspiration from this as well as the static in Silent Hill for my game. I created distorted radio chatter to scare and guide the player to the ending. Tension. Iron Lung builds tension through sound interacting with the narrative. The player understands that they are in an unsafe submarine and that anything could go wrong. And the game's audio design teases this with the sound of steam hissing or sounds of the hull creaking and groaning. In my horror game, I aim to achieve this by alluding to an enemy through audio. I hid the sounds of a humanoid zombie groan behind multiple areas in the game. There's no enemy in my game, I wanted to use audio alone to allude to a threat. Exploitation of diegesis. Iron Lung blurs the line between non-diegetic and diegetic sound through its sparse ambient soundtrack. Silent Hill 2 also makes use of this through its ambient and industrial-inspired soundtrack, using atonal sounds to make the player uncertain if that noise was just the music or if it came from within the game world. I used this approach as inspiration for the music in my game. I wanted the music to blend in with some of the environmental sounds. I had a base layer of ambience for each location, and some rhythmic Foley sounds as intensity layers designed to be unsettling and mechanical. The music also ramps up in intensity as the player progresses through the game. In this next section, I will explain the technical aspects of the game's development in Unreal Engine 5 and Fmod. The software was chosen because of their extensive tutorials for beginners. Unreal Engine doesn't require knowledge of C++. Instead, Unreal has a visual scripting language, Blueprints. The game is short, at around 5 minutes to complete. The player must collect 4 notes to finish the game, as they traverse around 3 areas: a forest, metro, and sewer. Audio is dynamic across locations. The aim was to create an atmosphere not convincingly like a real space, but one which fits the aesthetics of the game. I was inspired by early PlayStation games and indie games with their stylized and low fidelity graphics. Sound design was taken from Splice, which has a library of cinematic and game sounds that was edited in Ableton and Fmod. A horizontal and vertical music system was created. To make use of the interactive nature of games, the music system needs to change and ramp up in intensity as the player progresses. Parameters for the music location changes based on which of the 3 trigger volumes the player is in, and the number of notes the player has picked up in the game. The music changes seamlessly between these parameters with transition timelines and seek speed automation. In Unreal Engine, this was set up in a Music Manager blueprint, which triggers music when the game begins on event begin play, and it switches location parameter when the player overlaps on the trigger volumes. A separate note system is set up, and the Music Manager gets a reference to how many the player has collected, and it triggers the event instance set parameter, which in turn triggers the parameter in Fmod. For a dynamic environmental soundscape, sound actors were placed in the level like so, also making use of scatterers in Fmod to randomize the triggering, panning, and distance of the sound. A player survey was conducted on my game to measure player affect relating to fear. Participants played the game twice, with and without audio, and rated their experience on whether they agreed they felt a range of emotions in each playthrough. As can be seen, most participants felt the audio enhanced the overall horror experience, with higher ratings for the words relating to fear on the version with sound compared to without sound. The section for optional comments showed that players' experiences lined up with the horror principles I'd researched. One player said that they were scared by the static sound of the final note getting louder as they approached it, with a sudden cut to silence before the jump of the end screen. Another player felt on edge the entire time and were uncertain if there was an enemy or threat in the game. This aligned with my intentions of alluding to a threat through audio alone. In terms of the adaptive soundtrack, some players noted this in their accounts. One player liked the way sounds kept building up the more I explored. Another said they liked the mixture of ambient and natural sounds with something unnatural and alive. The survey showed that the project was an overall success in delivering fear through horror game sound design. The research in the literature review was valuable for my approach to audio, and in development of the game itself, I learned how to implement these audio design choices practically. The game download is available at itch.io at the following link. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. This project has been incredibly valuable to me as an aspiring sound designer. I've gained skills in media analysis, game development, and overall project management that will help me greatly in the future.